Cam Nation, don't call it a comeback, but the New Orleans Saints are 2-0 in 2024 under Darren Rizzi. Nothing existed behind the Rizzler. It was always Rizzi. That's it. That's all it ever was. Nobody else existed. No other coach was here. None of that ever happened. And we're going to enjoy the win for what it is, a 35-14 win. Now, did the main person who helped you win also make you almost lose? Yes, it was great Saints football, but the best Saints games are the ones that they win, regardless of how it happens. And today is a good day. Moving to 4-7 before you get to take a quick little break, hopefully heal up a little bit. Definitely watch out for that Aaron McCoy injury that popped up today, which could be concerning. I honestly am going to say is concerning. I am really worried about that. But all these things aside, all this talk aside, everything, more importantly than any, New Orleans Saints are winners. And I'm happy about it. What can I say? I'm happy about it. Saints won some football games, and I'll take it. Look, if you missed this game, and I understand frustrations are real. Heck, I didn't do a lot of work here for 2 months because, well, not my job anymore, but I enjoy it. It's hard to enjoy when your Dennis Allen-led team is losing, 6-7 games in a row. But here you are, New Orleans, looking different. The main thing that looks different from this team, Derek Carr does not look insanely better. Alvin Kamara does not look insanely better than he did during the losing streak, etc. This team just believes in themselves, and it's the greatest example that I can think of in recent New Orleans Saints history of how culture in a locker room can lead your team to victory. Too many times we saw during the Saints losing streak, the fight was gone. And everybody, look, if you want to come into the chat, whether it's in the follow-up comments, if you're here live and you want to be like, it was the Browns. Cool. Yep, it was. Don't care. Win's a win. Just like somebody was in our Discord earlier saying, oh, well, it didn't matter that you beat the Atlanta Falcons last week, even though they lead the division. They're beating weak teams. A win is a win. When are we going to acknowledge that the NFL is the best professional sports league in the world when it comes to parity? Any given Sunday is a thing for a reason. Did you beat the Browns? Yes, you did indeed. And the Browns also beat teams as well. Y'all remember who all the Browns beat? I don't think people really think about those things as they're going through that process. Like, people don't think, okay, well, did the Browns manage to beat a good team? Or in this case, did the Saints manage to beat a good team? Which, by the way, rooting for Sean Payton today, please, sir, managed to beat the Falcons. We appreciate it. But you beat the Ravens if you were the Browns. They beat the freaking Ravens. This was Jameis Winston beating the Ravens. So before we just jump on the bandwagon of, oh, well, the Saints beat a crappy team, newsflash, the Saints been a crappy team all year. Let me celebrate. So what does this mean if you're the Saints? Well, number one, what it means is you can actually be happy this week. It's good. Serotonin kicks in. All the things are nice. Second thing, what can we learn? Well, it is extremely evident. Number one, the New Orleans Saints wide receiving core is poo-poo. No offense to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I actually love what he's doing, providing for the team to make up for the fact that Rashid Shaheed hasn't been here. And I do hope that at some point we get to see some of these guys back in a black and gold uniform. Chris Olave, I don't know if I'm ever going to see him in a black and gold uniform again, but maybe we'll see somebody back. Obviously, it's not going to be Rashid. He's out 4 to 6 months. I don't know, but I can tell you that we've learned a lot and that this team has some little bit of fight and grit and tenacity. And that honestly makes me happy. It might be the simple things in life, but it does. Alvin Kamara had a good day today, even though he got very heavy usage in terms of targets. 20 total touches. Ends up having a weaker game for him at only 89 total yards, but I really wish they would have gave him that touchdown. But at the same time, Derek Carr had a pretty good game considering his best targets are the tight end room. Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson. Love to see Juwan Johnson, by the way, coming in kind of clutch here. Both Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau combining for 6 catches and 80 yards. And, of course, a tutty. Both of them getting 20-plus yard receptions. And also shout out to Foster Moreau for that absolutely amazing pass breakup, because that should have been an interception that Derek Carr threw, but he didn't. And I'll take it. Now, Taysom Hill did throw an ugly interception. I think that's just part of who Taysom is. And I've said it before. I think Taysom can do some things really well. I've critiqued him. Y'all have seen it here. Taysom does not throw a good deep ball. He doesn't. What does he throw a deep ball? He throws a deep ball like I throw a deep ball. It's very ducky. It flies for a long time, and anybody can just kind of like set up a campfire, get underneath it, eat a s'more, and catch a football. It's a great time if you're the opposing team. But what he does do extremely well He's a good route runner. I think it's always been undervalued by him. And those who follow the Who Dat Confessional podcast for a long time know that I've said that he should have been a tight end as soon as he got to New Orleans. Use him in the variety of ways. 8 catches on 10 targets, 50 yards. Short yardage, letting him barrel over people, that's fine. You only got a couple of years of him being probably this good left. You might as well use him. Then obviously the run game, 7 attempts, 138 yards. Obviously the 75er at the end there, sealing the game was the big one, but he had 3 TDs on the day. Still kind of wish you could have slid Alvin Kamara one. You could have. It's whatever, Clint Kubiak. Also appreciated Clint Kubiak coming out of this game with some trickerations, with some movement, getting back to what this team did really well before Dennis Allen and company led it in a disgusting skid. But if you're a New Orleans Saints fan, you have to be a little bit of positive because you did manage to get 2 games in. Should be worth noting, chat, as you have on your screen, with the New Orleans Saints being 4-7. If somehow, some way, Atlanta can lose today to Sean Payton, which, Sean, please have a little bit of that pettiness that you had when you were here. New Orleans is 2 games back. That's not that bad. Like, that's doable. Now, they do have the bye week, and then you have LA at home, New York Giants, Washington Commanders, Green Bay Packers, Las Vegas Raiders, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not telling y'all playoff push is happening, but I will say if you wanted to have a playoff push, what do you need? Well, you need your defense to give up less than 20 points a game. Check, check. And you need your offense to just be something resembling decent. Check, check. Hey, I don't care who's against. Hate all you want. I'm happy. Happy. Love to see W's. Let's go over the play-by-play, the game-by-game, the everything of what made this game so good if you were a Saints fan. Started off well. I mean, you got that touchdown from Hill. In fact, I actually love the start of this game because the game started exactly how you want it to start. You got a 4th down stop, made them get rid of the ball, and then the Cleveland Browns, who had not given up any score this year on the first drive of the game to any opponent, including Lamar Jackson, who I think is an MVP-level player, New Orleans scored a touchdown. Started how you want it. Then you had the huge Jerry Jeudy pass. And look, I think that was something that we know is probably going to happen, right? You got rid of Marshawn Lattimore, traded him away. Paulson Debo's out with injury. Your 2 best corners, 2 things that you're probably going to see pop up are yards after catch. That's going to happen. So you end up giving a big play there. It really isn't the worst performance you've seen New Orleans do. In fact, I love them defensively, except for the big plays. Losing some of your star players can lead to big plays being given up, but you held them to 23% conversion on 3rd down, only gave up 1 of their 3 attempted 4th down attempts, and you blanked them in the red zone while the New Orleans Saints scored in the red zone, 2 out of 3. So that is a win. New Orleans getting back to some of the things that they do well. Still not perfect. One thing that I don't like is the amount of first downs. Below 20 is not a good metric. Need to see the New Orleans Saints do better in that, but you won time of possession. Defensively, you're getting to see some of the guys come in and show out. Demario Davis, and I said this on X, Demario Davis is having a heck of a year, and if it wasn't for the New Orleans Saints record, if the New Orleans Saints record was flipped, and they were 7-4, Demario Davis would be being discussed right now as an all-pro level linebacker. Now, I know he's made the all-pro team 4 years in a row, so that shouldn't shock anybody. However, you just simply do not get the recognition when you're on a bad team. This is just the nature of sports. Anytime you're on a bad team, you just don't get noticed as much. But this man, I'm sorry, I said 4. It's 5 years in a row he's made the All-Pro team. He had All-Pro first back in 2019, and then he's been All-Pro second 4 years in a row. I think he's still playing at that level at 35 years old, which is incredibly impressive. Incredibly impressive. But also seeing Brian Brzee coming in. Shout out to my man Breezy. Going to be the greatest of all time at 3-tech if New Orleans can continue to develop him. Had a sack and a half. Chase Young coming in with another half sack. And then Carl Granderson with 1. I think one thing to take out of this 2-game win streak, regardless of whether it can extend, is seeing the better play from the defensive line. Now, where was that when Dennis Allen was here? Not sure. It's still not great. But this defensive line is doing better when it comes to stopping the run. Better being a relative term, but 20 attempts for 66 carries, what the Browns had today. I know Nick Chubb is not what he used to be, but it's still a good, solid running back. But if you look at where the defense is right now, for me, I'm excited to see Granderson getting those sacks, to see Brian Brzee, who now moves up to, I think, 5.5 sacks on the season. Chase Young's going to be around, I think, 3.5 now with his half sack. So need to see those numbers continue to climb. For reference, by the way, though, last year, Brian Brzee had 4.5 sacks on the season. So he has now surpassed his total from last year, and obviously doing it in less games. Now doing it in 11 games versus playing every game last year, though not being a full-time starter. So positives to take. Always try to find the positive where we can. Main thing from this game, you beat a team that you need to beat. Right? You need to beat Jameis Winston. Yes, you gave up almost 400 yards to Jameis Winston. But did you lose the game? No. So that is kind of what's important. Now, Aaron Luke asking the big question. I want to keep Rizzy at head coach. Am I insane? No, you're not. Now, if the proverbial perfect head coach was available for me to go after, would I want them? Absolutely. But who is that? And I would say the main thing this team has needed is a leader of men. And I've been saying that for a while. They need a leader of men. It does not mean that Dennis Allen is not a leader, but there's a difference, as we talked about last week, between being a general and being a lieutenant. And I think that Darren Rizzi is a general type of personality. He may not be the best when it comes to X's and O's, but he creates a culture of winning. He came into the rooms to this week, in the locker room, into the player meetings. Sledgehammer and hard hat said, you got to get to work. And look, some of those things can be cheesy. Symbolism can be effective depending on how the culture is in a locker room. If you replace Darren Rizzi, which again, I'm not going to argue for and against because the Saints are 4-7, but the quality he does have is being a leader that is creating a culture teams believe in. Whether that actually is something that you want to continue on, that's kind of up to you, but it doesn't make you insane, Aaron. It simply makes you someone who sees what the problem was, recognizes that it's better. That doesn't mean it's the better answer. We'll just have to wait and see what history says. Edwin says, I know it's a stupid complaint after a win, but it really does bother me that we go all out of our way to not get AK in the end zone, potential Hall of Famer, and we do not help at least building that case for him. Well, I mean, they did give him attempts. It was Taysom Hill's day. Do keep in mind that AK already has more touchdowns than he did last year. So if AK can get 10 or more touchdowns this season, remember, we've got 11 games played, so you still got several games left to go, right? He can get, just a few more. I think that he's had a great year. I'd argue that Kamara has had arguably the best season he's had in 7 years. I think that Clint Kubiak has been imperfect. I think there are issues that he has, and I think that's undeniable. But look at Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is having his best season since 2020. I don't really feel like that's debatable. I feel like it's his best season. Now, you can consider 2021. Obviously, he didn't play that full season. I tend to not look at seasons where guys don't play entire years. But just through 10 games, he surpassed last year. He surpassed 2022. So clearly better than the Pete Carmichael days version of himself. He's 29. So generally, running backs at this point slow down if you're Alvin Kamara. He's actually doing quite well. His average is better, obviously, with the offensive line playing better. I think AK's doing well. Nothing wrong with critiques, but I mean, we're talking about a team that was doing nothing for a long time. Let's bring up their past games. Let's relive the 7 weeks of hell. This is a team that just scored 35 today. And we can say, oh, the Browns. Doesn't matter. It's an NFL team that scored 35, the most points they've scored since week 2 against the Dallas Cowboys. In fact, if you look, they struggled to score 20 points during the 7-game losing streak. So whatever it is that they're doing clearly is working. Need to continue on that vein. And I said it last week. Are these games winnable? Yes. The Rams is a winnable game. The Giants are a winnable game. Commanders and Packers are both really good teams. We'll see if they can win. But of the remaining 6 games, 4 of those are quite winnable. We'll see what ends up happening with the team. Let's grab into y'all's comments more, though. I do appreciate y'all chiming in. Love it. It's easy to enjoy the game when the Saints are winning. So let's drop off. It says the Hansel nerds that were Taysom or bust on offense and just gave up 300, almost 400 yards to Winston and stop the playoff stuff. Well, look, I think the playoffs are possible because of the division. Am I rooting for the playoffs? Always. I'm a fan of the game. I'm always going to root for the Saints to win and get to the playoffs. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm telling you now, nobody can, try to say that I'm hyping things up. No, I do not think this team makes the playoffs. Is it possible? Yes, because the division is not very good. And if you look at the actual standings around the league, wild card is technically possible, but unlikely. I mean, Dallas has flopped, and Dallas has finally had the year where they're no longer Dallas, but that is what it is. There's your Washington team, which is second behind Philly. Then you look at the NFC North with Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, which is a powerhouse of teams, but you don't have a ton. The NFC West is just as weak as the NFC South is. And if you're talking about a third type wild card spot, if you're talking about making the division, it is possible. Do I think it's going to happen? Highly unlikely. Is it possible? It absolutely is, just simply based on who you have. And if you look around the league right now, again, if you're a Saints fan, you're always going to root for the Falcons to lose. There is a 7-0 win at the time that we're doing this live with the Broncos leading. And as far as Tampa Bay, they're on a bye. And then next week, as the Saints are on their bye, you're going to have Tampa going against the Giants. So Tampa clearly has a schedule that they can win as well. But all you can do if you're a Saints fan is hope that they win the games that are presented before them. They did that today. I'm happy with it. Lance, good to see you. How much effect did Allen have on that offense? Is it just coincidence that they just got better with a few people back? A couple things for me when I look at this team, and I think it really comes down to the very cliche aspect of culture. I just think this team believes in themselves. You look at how the defense is playing again. We know the defense is good. Defense has kind of always been good under DA, and I do expect the defense to take a step back in terms of effectiveness. I think we see that today. I mean, you almost gave up 400 yards to Winston. Why? Well, your two best corners, who in my opinion were top 5 at their respective positions, that being number 1 corner and your number 2 corner. Well, now you've got a rookie and then the guy that you had moved down into the nickel, as well as subs, right? You've got an aging veteran at safety who I think is good, but doesn't have the range he once did, being the Honey Badger. And not that I'm trying to be a Harris hater, but I don't believe that he is a high-end talent. So the secondary went from being one of your best groups to, after injury and trades, to being, let's just say, they're average at best in the NFL right now in terms of talent of what you're putting out on the field. That's going to affect your defense. Thankfully for the Saints so far, you've had the defensive line in the front 7 step up. I really feel like Demario Davis has stepped it up greatly. But yeah, this defense is not a great defense right now. And in terms of yards, it's not going to get much better. This team has clearly taken a step back in a lot of ways. I think it'd be silly of us to deny that. But more than anything, culture wins football games. It's how teams like the New York Giants take down the undefeated New England Patriots. Believing in yourself and believing in the guy next to you can take you a long way. And clearly they are right now with Rizzy, right? Does not guarantee that this team's going to make a push, but it does mean that they're playing good ball, effective ball. And all you can do is try to win the games that you're presented. And I know that there are fans out there who are very pro the tank strategy. You would much rather lose out and get a good draft pick, but I'm not. So I'm enjoying the wins. I respect people having their opinions, but as if it's up to me, I'm always going to want the team to win. But the biggest thing that Darren Rizzi is providing is a culture shock and a culture change. He talked about this week 1, him being the coach, they knew that there could be an emotional high, but how do you carry that into week 2? Well, you do it with a gritty game like today. And I think that is exactly what describes this game, gritty. Now, there are positives about this team that should be noted. Number 1, this team is playing significantly better when it comes to penalties. Here's all the numbers right here. Look at the time of possession, but look at the penalties. This is a team that has had games where they would score 20-something, 30 points, but they'd get 10 penalties. Much more disciplined team so far these past 2 games. Hopefully that is something that sustains. Hopefully getting Kendre Miller back helps. That should happen after the bye week. Hopefully McCoy getting fully healthy. He left today with a groin pull. Doesn't look super serious. Hopefully that's all good to go in a couple of weeks. Obviously getting Cesar Ruiz back, you can clearly see that the running game has had a lot more life the past couple of weeks because the offensive line is finally getting healthy again. I mean, hell, today the New Orleans Saints ran for 214 yards on 28 attempts. You'll take that, especially with 3 tutties thrown in. So as far as the New Orleans Saints go, they can only get as healthy as they can get. There's only so far that can really go. That said, in terms of what they can do, who's coming back, etc., there is a chance to make an impact. There are some guys that I just don't expect to see. I know Chris Olave is a dynamic player, but I don't really see him coming back. As far as Guys like Debo, maybe Bub Memes, if he came off IR, would that really be helping much? Probably not. Rashid Shaheed and Olave are clearly what's missing from this offense. Kendre Miller, I think, can help because as much as I like Mims, I don't feel like he's a very effective running back. I like him in terms of, you always want to root for the underdog type of a guy, but I don't feel like he's an effective player. And there's nobody really on the practice squad you can just call up and say, hey, let's get this going. Big thing is getting the offensive line healthy. And if Derek Carr can play like he does today, which is effective, but not too risque. I mean, 78% completion percentage, 2 tutties and 250. That's the Derek Carr you paid for and want. It's not amazing. It's not outlandishly good, but it's good enough. So if you can have that, this team can play quite well. And let's see, White Wolf says, any take on Alontae Taylor moving a free safety and being effective? Seems a better fit there than boundary DB. I think his best fit is as a nickel. That's where he's really kind of gotten better at. I'm not saying he's bad on the boundary because I don't think he is bad on the boundary. But I think his best is actually closer to the line of scrimmage, not further back. I believe in space is actually where he has more issues, not in contact. I think it's better to keep him in short, in contact. But we'll see how that, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how that goes. Ryan says, absolutely gas. Game was too close for longer than it needed to be. Maybe. Look, I just went over a whole list of things that this team is needing to be better at. Yeah, you're absolutely right. These touchdowns you see behind me, I love that they happened, but 3 of them happened in the fourth quarter. Now, they happened at the beginning of the fourth quarter, so it's not like they waited till like the last 5 minutes to start scoring tutties, but you take the scores that you can get, you take the wins you can get. We'll see where the team can go from here. Bye week, I'm very curious to see how they come out of the bye week, and if Darren Rizzi can go 3-0, surpassing DA's win total this year, that would be that'd be something. I mean, because you got to think about it, Darren Rizzi wants to win games probably more than anybody in this chat does. Because if Darren Rizzi can finally get an opportunity to prove himself, he's got a legitimate chance of being a head coach. And I'm not trying to hate on Rizzi, but I said it last week. Special teams coordinators do not typically become head coaches. Almost everybody in this chat is going to be limited to saying one name when it comes to that, and that is Harbaugh. Almost nobody else can probably name other high-profile special teams coaches in the past 20, 30 years. So this is Rizzi's shot to prove himself and show, hey, I deserve it. Remember, this is a guy that's been a coordinator in the league for over a decade. Remember, he was with Miami for like 7 or 8 years till we grabbed him. Now he's been here like 7 years. The man's just never had a shot. Now, he was a college head coach. Many of y'all might not realize that, but he was a head coach in FCS and FBS. So maybe he gets a shot, but he definitely wants to win. And that means a lot. And if a player can buy into that and believe in their coach, you can see how well a player can play. And I think that's what you see in today's game. Was it amazing? No. But there were a lot of great things. Also, shout out to Dante Pettis. Just a sliver from having a punt return for a TD. Really, really close. And also, I don't know what type of voodoo Darren Rizzi is employing, but the fact that kickers cannot kick in New Orleans right now is nuts, and I am happy about that. To keep that going. Keep it going. Because Hopkins missed 2, but if you remember, he technically missed 3 because a penalty gave him another chance, and he still missed it. Whatever Darren Rizzi has done to the turf, the floor, the stadium, the voodoo, the atmosphere, the air conditioner, I don't care. Keep that going. Kickers apparently cannot kick in the Superdome unless they're wearing the black and gold. Shout out to Blake Grupe making every one of your extra points, by the way. That way I don't jinx anything. Ryan adds, it's the energy Rizzi brings, makes viewing the game more enjoyable, let alone how much it'll do for the players' energy and morale. Amen. Amen. Let's also not forget that Darren Rizzi helped the Pelicans snap their losing streak as well. Talking about people being injured. Oh, man. Oh, that Zion guy. That Zion guy. Not that I'm trying to get into that. I'm just saying. That Zion guy. Last time he played was 11 days ago. Just waiting. That man to give me 60 games a year. Just 60. I'm really trying not to sound like a hater. Pelicans, I get it. We tried. I've said it before. We've tried. Don't think the Zion experiment's working. Anyway, back to the Saints who are actually winning games. There you go. Godfather says Taysom needs some stickum on his gloves. Not lying. And also he needs to stop throwing deep passes. Stop. And honestly, it's just the read. It's the same thing that I griped about when Taysom was going and trying to be the starting quarterback. The man's reads are just all over the place. I mean, that was a clear cover three that all three were trailing in deep. The safety did not bite underneath. It was a Yankee concept. The underneath route could have been there. He still went Kobe and bricked it. It happened. Instead of getting Kobe, we got Shaq. And that was, is what it is. But you won, and he made up for it because he ran for 3 touchdowns. So, yes, 2 turnovers, but if we're plus and minusing, he's +1 on the TD to turnover ratio. So, hey, Taysom Hill, have a day, sir. Appreciate you. Thank you. Don't do that in 2 weeks, okay? Just go ahead and get that out of your system. As far as where the Saints are at right now, if you're tracking, Taysom Hill is, well, just to be completely honest with you, he is threatening his record in terms of like his own personal milestones of rushing. He is now around 330, I think, rushing yards. His career record is back in 2022. We did 575. He might well getting close to that. He also today, for those that don't track this, matched his season touchdown total from last year. He now has 6 touchdowns this year through 11 games. Last year, he had 6 throughout the entire season, which for him was 16 games. So you'll take it how you can get it. Driver says Rizzy blew out the Browns like he blew out the toilet last week. He did destroy that toilet. Maybe that's what it is. All the clogged toilets are causing the kicks to veer off to the left. Whatever it is, I want more of it. Why you got to bring the mood down? I don't. I just need the Pels to bring the mood up, right? I'm asking the Pels to be decent. Come on, Pels. Too talented of a team. I didn't really believe in their offseason when there was like, hey, we'll just forget that the big position exists. And what if we just went small and fast everywhere? Well, hey, don't know if you know this Pelicans front office. That's been tried before. Kind of need an effective big man. But you know what? Whatever. We're just going to be a team of elite guards and 2 superstars who are forwards but are kind of guards. We'll see what happens. We talking playoffs? Hey, it's possible. But we'll see. We're not going to get too excited. Let's see how we play in 2 weeks. Because obviously we got the bye week, so I won't see y'all next week. But we do have the bye week coming up. After there, can't call it a gauntlet, but it is a table that has to be run. I would say this. If you legitimately are out there wondering what would it take for the Saints to win the playoffs, in my opinion, of their next 6 games, they would need to win at least 4 and get help. Now, if you ran the table, which is incredibly unlikely, especially with the Commanders and Commanders and Packers in back-to-back weeks, highly unlikely. If you ran the table, I think you win the division, no problem. Right? You're 4-7 now. If you went 10-7, I think that wins the NFC South, no issue. But if you went 8-9 or 9-8, very legitimate chance you win. I don't think this team's going to make the playoffs. But if you're looking for the path, or you're looking for the possibilities, that's the route. You have to win minimum 4 and get help. How is that possible? Simple. The division is not that good, and your remaining opponents are also as inconsistent as you are. So, New Orleans Saints just moved to 4-7. Atlanta, hopefully they lose today, would drop to 6-5. But if they don't, then they're 7-4. That'd make it a lot tougher. You need Sean Payton's petty to kick in and him treat the Falcons like he did when he was in New Orleans. So we'll see how that plays out. You're not going to take down all 6. It's just incredibly unlikely, especially with 2 of those teams being, very, very good teams. We've seen that the Green Bay Packers, at least by my eye, are having a good year. I've been watching them a little bit today as I was flipping back between the Saints and watching other games. I feel like Packers are a good team. Obviously beating the Bears in a close one. So I think it's a little bit off your screen, but they beat the Bears 20-19. I mean, very, very close, but divisional games can be that way. I think it's winnable, but unlikely. Possible. Again, all about what you think is going to work the best. Obviously, we should be rooting for Atlanta to lose. Kirk Cousins has been really doing better. So has Bo Nix, and we'll just kind of see how that plays out. Abraham says, I believe in Rizzy Ball. Let's run the table. You know what? I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it happening. Do I believe it's going to happen? No. Is Wood playing more man than Allen? No. Now, Allen always adjusted based on what was going on. Now, Wood is using a lot more pre-snap disguises and rotations, but I would not say that he is doing more man that we've seen Allen do. Because obviously we had years and years of Allen in terms of how he ran his teams. Also, Cousins just got sacked by Malcolm Roach. Are we reading a New Orleans Saints game right now? Yeah, Kirk Cousins sacked at the Atlanta 17, losing 7 yards by Malcolm Roach. Okay. Oh, you know what? However you have to win, Sean Payton, if you got to use former Saints players, I ain't mad about it. Malcolm Roach getting a sack. But anyway, we're going to wrap up today. Love y'all and appreciate y'all. If you need me, as always, you can hit me up on X. Appreciate y'all. Who dat? God bless. Take the W. Celebrate. Enjoy. See ya. 2 weeks. That's the next game. Maybe we win. I hope we do. We'll see.